Welcome to the Sports Card Lessons Podcast. I am your host, Big Ken. You know the drill. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Most importantly, thanks for being here. What is going on, everyone? Before we start, a few side notes. Saturday, I will be traveling down to the Philly show with Rob, Sports Card Therapist. We're making a day of it. So if you are going to be at that show on Saturday, definitely message me. Let me know. I will look for you. We're going to be walking the show. We're not set up. We're just going to be walking the show, but just hope to see a lot of people I haven't seen in a while down there. On Thursday's episode, super excited. I have Brian Dwyer, president of Robert Edward Auctions. That is going to be a great episode. Looking forward to that. This weekend, Saturday, I was able to get out to a local show here in Connecticut. Shout out Alex on Instagram at Ideal Cards. He puts on the Enfield, Connecticut show the first Saturday of every month. And we did have some inclement weather, a little icy, sleety stuff that came overnight, Friday night. But I got up, got out. It's about an hour away from me. Definitely, I love to hit a show every weekend, and yeah, it's always a great show. I had a couple pickups, just not my PC, just my showcases. Shout out Nick on Instagram at Nicholas Del Santo. First time meeting Nick. We got a deal done. I was happy to get it done. I was happy with the cards that I got. Not sure how long he's been in the hobby, but sometimes our minds fill in the blanks. I probably should have asked him a few more questions before I left, because I told him I was going to shout him out and shout the deal out. But I think what happens is the first time I ever set up, I set up at this show in Enfield, my very first show to set up. And surprisingly enough, it was at that exact table. My first show, I set up with Rob, Sports Card Therapist, and we set up. That was, I think, at the time, his second or third show, my first show, but it was at that table. And all of a sudden, I kind of got it stuck in my mind. And I know Nick's a young guy, right? That he was new because he was in the newbie table. That's, where I was when I was new. So Nick, if I'm wrong, if you've been doing this a long time, hey, I'm sorry. I just felt, you were a young guy, just getting started, setting up at a show. But on my way home, you're thinking of all this stuff. And I thought to myself, even like, even if Nick was just starting out, like, what does it take to be successful in the hobby? For anybody, what does it take to be successful in the hobby? Or in any hobby? Right. And that's today's episode. And this, I mean, I'm obviously talking about sports cards, right? Talking about this hobby. But I'm just going to call it the 4 P's of the hobby, right? The 4 P's of the hobby. The first P is personal, right? I mean, any hobby, it just needs to be personal. It needs to be about you. It needs to be what's bringing you joy and happiness, what makes you feel good, right? And for each and every one of us, those feelings are different. Even though we're all in the hobby, how I feel about things and how you or anybody else feels about it, they're different. Those feelings are different for every single person. So I'm not going to show up and say, I feel this way. This makes me feel this way, that I expect everybody to feel the same way. That's not going to happen. Could be 10 of us all looking at the same card that would be our grail card, and we would all feel differently about that card. But it just needs to be personal, right? It needs to bring us that feeling, that sense of joy, that sense of happiness. Um, there are many things in life we do because we have to, right? And with work and so many things. But the hobby is just a great distraction from all those other things. It gives us something to look forward to. I know, and I'm gonna going to be personal about this for me when I'm off doing work and I'm in a business and I'm setting up a network or whatever I'm doing on an IT side, you know, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I got a show coming up this week. And like this week, all this week, I'm going to be thinking about going to Philly on Saturday. So it's those little things. It's just a distraction. It's not so much of a distraction that I can't get my work done, but just that distraction that it's telling me everything I'm doing here is all worth it because I can do these other things, right? This here, what I'm doing allows me to do those other things. So yeah, now it becomes personal because that's the way my mind works, right? That's what's happening to me. But other people, it's different, right? With other people, their thought pattern, what they're thinking, how they hobby, what they do so they can be in the hobby is completely different from what I do. So we all come from different walks of life, uh, but at the end of the day, it's personal. This hobby needs to be personal for us. The second P, people. I think being alone in anything only lasts so long, right? If you have if you set hobby goals and hobby achievements and you reach them, I mean, if you have nobody to share them with, I mean, how far does that go? Uh, and again, me personally, because everybody's different, that would bring on a sense of loneliness for me. Like I would get to do what I would succeed at something, but if I had nobody to share it with, I mean, really, how what's the what and for me, I'm saying this for me because I know there's other people out there that do this alone and they enjoy doing this alone. And they're gonna say, hey, this is my alone time and I love doing that. And that's fine. I'm just built a little differently. When I'm doing something or I'm involved in something, I want to share. I want to share it with people. Um, I'm happy I have a great partner here at home. She like I know that a lot of times I'm talking to her about cards and the hobby and the podcast and she's listening. I don't know if she needed to hear all of it or wanted to hear all of it, but it's where I start here at home, and then I have my hobby people, that I'm surrounded with. And they're like-minded people, you know. Um, I know there are a lot of people out there you know, who are during their creative sessions, whatever they're doing, they like to be alone, right? But then when they create something, they need to share it. They want to share it, and they start with the people closest to them, like I do here in the house, and then it works its way out, right, to the my close people in the hobby. And just being around like-minded people, right? Sometimes just to ask questions, that we can, learn together, grow together, people in the I mean, it's what we need. It's what I mean, I think as a it's human nature to wanna have, surround yourself with people that like the same things you do, right? On season 2, episode 16, that was just a couple episodes ago, I had Rob Gerard on the podcast, and he was pretty vulnerable talking about his vision when I asked him about his vision for the wolf pack, and he said it came from a place of loneliness as a kid. And there was a lot of feedback that came from listeners, who felt somewhat lonely in the hobby. And after hearing him talk about that, they felt inspired to reach out to other people, to start building some friendships in the hobby. I know firsthand, right? I'm older than most, so I know firsthand, um, as an adult, how hard it is to make friends, just period. Just period, just to find new friends. And as we go through stages of our life, right, friends of convenience come and go, whether it's through work or your kids or sports with the kids or neighbors, before you moved and etc. Right? Just they're friendships of convenience and they come and go in your life. And some of them you're like, yeah, that's okay. I don't mind. And other ones, like you really feel like a sense of loss. I know through my life, when some of these friends have left, I really felt like a sense of loss, that I really enjoyed that friendship. But for whatever reason, when our kids were done playing this sport, or I moved to a new neighborhood or anything, we kind of went our own ways and maybe lost touch or things like that. So I know how hard it is, um, to find new friends, to make new friends. And I do have to say, in my lifetime, at my age, I never expected to have as many hobby friends as I do now. And in fact, I have more friends in this hobby than I did at any one time in my life. I mean, honestly, and believe it or not, it's absolutely true. And some of the people that I've been friends with for years and I'm still friends with now, I mean, I almost feel like, um since I jumped back into the hobby, maybe I neglected them a little bit. I reach out to them, hey, and they're like, "Oh yeah, how's that card thing?" And I'm like, "Good." I'm like, "We got to get together. We have to hang out. We have to." And I don't want to be that person that left somebody else. Left one friend for new friends. I try to keep the friends around me because they're important. Those friendships that I've had for many years and I've held on to, are important. And if you're of a younger age, listening to this, you'll know what I'm talking about through the years, with friendships. So having people around you, like-minded people around you, it's very important. It's very important. And I'm going to tell you, if you're doing it alone and you think it would be better with other people, get out there, start connecting with other fellow hobbyists, because you're not alone. There's a lot of people out there that would be happy to have some more hobby friends. I'll take all the hobby friends I can get. The third P, passion. Like anything else in life, for most of us, we find passion by accident or through others around us. Could be a hobby, a sport, job, career, anything we do. Uh, and sometimes we first try something for the first time. I mean, how many times has this happened to you that you try something for the first time and you say, "Oh man, that sucks. I ain't doing that no more." Right? And then at a later time in your life, you go back for whatever reason, you get drawn back into it, and you're like, "Oh man, this is all right. This is pretty awesome." Like, I don't know why I thought it was so terrible back then, but I'm glad I'm here now. And I often think when those things happen, is just we weren't ready. We weren't in the right place in our life to accept, what came with anything, a hobby, a sport, music, I don't care what it is. We just weren't ready for it. And maybe if we decided then that we were ready for it, that it may have never lasted. It may have fizzled out, because how many times have you felt really passionate about something and then a few months later you're like, nah, I don't know, that's maybe not for me, or I'd rather be doing something else. I don't want to be doing this anymore. Um, so I think, for whatever reason, we find passions in our lifetime at different times. I mean, they come and go. And I think, um, if we go back to the first P, just being personal, I think a lot of passion and personal they have a lot of connection there. Because I, I just think if we jump into doing something and it's not bringing us all that joy and excitement, that we thought it was, we kind of move on. And sometimes we do it because other people that we really care about around us are doing it. And we really want to find that joy and passion. And I think it gets to a point where you're like, I know how this person feels, and I can see how much joy it brings them. And it just doesn't bring me that kind of joy. So it's, at sometimes it's okay to have, different passions, because when we come into a hobby like this, we all have a passion, but like I talked about earlier, it's not the same. Our passions are all completely different, but it's a form of passion that brings us together here in this hobby. And I know there are people in this hobby that don't have a lot of that stuff, that this hobby is just a business to them, right? It's clearly just a business that, I'm just buying cards and I'm selling cards and I'm making money. And at the end of the day, I don't have a PC. I don't want, so they're coming in, but are they any more or less than us? No, they're still part of the hobby. They're still part of making this hobby, you know, continue on and evolving, right? You need all parts of this hobby for it to work, right? Or just I'm not going to say successful, right? Because success is something completely different. But I think, we're all here and we're all a part of what keeps this hobby going. Um, make sure make sure you're passionate, and as I take a break, just pausing for a minute here. Um, we all find our passion different ways, right? And I say this because I talk with other people about how passionate I feel about certain things in the hobby, and they're like, "Oh, okay." And I realize we all have different passion, right? The passion we have, and I'm saying this just like I said at the beginning, what my passion is and how I talk about it, that's mine. I own that. Find your passion. Find what your passion is. The last P, participation. That's the one thing about this hobby is, you with the internet, you could stay home and never leave your house to participate. Your collection could be as small as one card. It could be as high as, a million cards. You can choose to participate in the hobby any way you choose. Um, I take in a lot of content. I listen to a lot of content, and I talk about people. I listen to people who set up at shows. I listen to people who go to shows. I listen to people who don't go to shows or set up at shows, but they're in the hobby. They're at home, they're online, they're buying cards, they have a PC. They don't need to get out to a show to be in the hobby. They don't need to set up at a show to be in the hobby. Some people I know may have 5 or 6 cards. That's it. I mean, that's what brings them joy. That's what they're happy with. And they're holding those cards and they have a list of other cards that they want to get, and it could take them 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, right, to get these cards. Um, I'm built a little differently. You know, I participate, I jump in, I have a lot of passion in the hobby. Um, and I want to say I'm a real go-getter, right? So when I get my mind set on something, um, I create, small goals, large goals, and a lot of those are just mine. Like I don't talk, I'm not outward about all my goals in the hobby because I just think, they belong to me, and I don't really want to inspire the people around me with my goals. I'd rather have them have their own goals and short and long term. And I talked last week on the episode about getting ready for national. Um, and I found myself, already saying, okay, I'm hitting this first show. I want to go find a card to put in that box for national. And I almost felt like I was a little let down because I went to the show and I didn't find one. And I was like, okay, all right, it's okay. I'm going to go home. I'm going to jump online. I'm going to look around. And when I got home, I said, okay, I understand myself and who I am. And sometimes I go all in, right? Sometimes I've got a goal and I want to complete it as fast as I can. And this weekend was probably the first time coming home Saturday that I said, okay, take a breath because we've looked online, we've looked through the auction houses. There's nothing at the right prices right now. We didn't really find anything on Instagram or Facebook, and we didn't find anything at the show. So tomorrow's another day. Next week's another week. Got a bigger show coming to Philly, Philly next week. Something more, forward, something to look forward to. So my participation, as you listen to, on this podcast, is a lot. It's an awful lot. And I say that, and I started this out saying, you can do as little as you want in this hobby or as much as you want in this hobby to participate, and it's acceptable, right? It's okay to do as little or as much as you want. I'm the guy that's got the gas pedal to the floor, and I'm like, let's go. We've got a goal. Let's get this done. We're in a time crunch. We've got national coming. We've got, other shows coming and things like that. So it's the way I hobby. At the end of the day, the way I hobby is a lot harder and faster than most people. But it doesn't make it, doesn't my participation doesn't make it any better or any worse than anybody else's out there. And that's the greatest thing about the hobby, right? You make it personal. You get to find your people. You make those decisions of those people that you find, right? And you can choose to be friends or not friends with these people in the hobby. You get to share your passion with other people. And I think that's important. I think that's really important because I think as you share your passion with other people, that's where you find your people. That's where you find the people in this hobby that understand you and you understand them. And I think that's so important. Um, and you get to participate how much or little as you can, as you want, right? It's there's no set of rules um, about the hobby. Absolutely no set of rules. You can come in and do what you want, do as much as you want, do as little as you want, find as many people, find no people. There's no set rules, but it all goes back to the very first P, right? It needs to be personal. It needs to be what drives you, right? What makes you happy? What brings you joy? Because that's really what it's all about, right? In life is, we want to be happy. We want to find things that make us happy because there's a lot of things we have to do that, in life. And I say that because I am where I am in my life. And there's a lot of things I had to do in my life that maybe I didn't want to do, but I had to do, right? And things in my life created escapes. There were small other hobbies and other things that I did that were smaller escapes. And now at this point in my life, it's this hobby that's my escape from, the other things in my life. So that's all I have for you today. The 4 Ps. Um, Again, I'm going to be in Philly on Saturday. If you were there, come find me, message me. Um, and that is it. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And if you like what you hear, please definitely subscribe, and most importantly, tell a friend and spread the word. And until next time, take care of yourselves and everyone around you.